Did you know that the annual migration of Canadian snowbirds to Florida's sunny shores is one of the largest and most economically significant human migrations on the planet? For decades, it was a predictable, steady rhythm as reliable as the tides themselves. But recently, that rhythm has been breaking. The beaches are quieter, the parking lots are emptier, and a multi-billion-dollar question hangs in the balmy air.
Today, we're diving into a silent crisis unfolding in the Sunshine State, the dramatic decline of the Canadian snowbird season. We'll explore the deep-rooted history of this cross-border relationship, break down the complex factors driving this change, and reveal the shocking 2025 updates that have local businesses and communities more worried than ever. Stick around until the end, because reason number one for this exodus will truly shock you. Before we dive in, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications, because you won't want to miss the truth behind Florida's biggest tourism crisis. Let's get started. For over half a century, the term snowbird was synonymous with a specific demographic: retirees, primarily from Canada, fleeing their harsh winters for Florida's warmth. This wasn't just a vacation, it was a semi-perennial relocation. They would arrive around October or November, often staying for 4 to 6 months, and depart just as the spring thaw hit back home. This migration was a cornerstone of Florida's economy and cultural fabric. The history of this tradition runs deep, rooted in post-World War II prosperity and improved transportation links. The advent of affordable air travel and the construction of a massive interstate highway system made the long journey feasible for millions. Florida, in turn, actively courted them, building countless condominiums, mobile home parks, and communities specifically designed to cater to their long-term needs. It was a perfect, symbiotic relationship built on sun and survival. The economic impact of this migration is, frankly, staggering. It's estimated that Canadian snowbirds inject between $5 to $7 billion annually into Florida's economy. This isn't just tourism money, it's revenue for long-term rentals, grocery stores, healthcare providers, restaurants, and car dealerships. They pay property taxes, sales taxes, and support hundreds of thousands of local jobs. Their absence doesn't just mean empty beaches, it means a real economic contraction. Culturally, their influence is everywhere, especially in regions like Southwest Florida, the Gulf Coast, and areas around Fort Lauderdale. Canadian flags fly proudly next to American ones on golf carts, supermarkets stock their favorite brands of ketchup, chips, and coffee, and hospitals have entire wings with staff fluent in French and English. They became an integral, expected part of the seasonal community, not just visitors. So, what happened? The decline didn't occur overnight. It's been a slow-motion unraveling, accelerated by a perfect storm of external pressures. The first major crack appeared with the onset of the COVID-19 pandemic. Border closures, mandatory quarantine rules, and health fears grounded an entire generation of snowbirds for 2 consecutive seasons. This forced hiatus made many reconsider the necessity and hassle of the entire endeavor. This break in routine was a catalyst for change. While stuck at home, many snowbirds discovered they could manage. They found local community centers, invested in better home heating, and connected with family more. The idea of going to Florida remained appealing, but the practical obligation of it began to fade. It opened the door for alternatives that were previously unconsidered, setting the stage for a permanent shift. One of the biggest factors is, unsurprisingly, financial. The cost of everything in Florida has skyrocketed. Property insurance rates have become a national headline, with annual premiums for homeowners doubling or even tripling in some coastal areas. This crisis makes owning a second home prohibitively expensive for all but the wealthiest Canadians, pricing out the average retiree on a fixed pension. Combine that with soaring rental prices, inflated WA fees for condos, and general inflation affecting groceries and dining out, and the math simply stops working. The dream of an affordable winter escape is colliding with the reality of a high-cost state. For many, the financial risk and strain no longer justify the few months of sunshine, leading them to sell their properties or not renew long-term leases. Currency exchange rates have also been a persistent thorn in the side of snowbirds. The Canadian dollar has struggled against its US counterpart for years. When the loonie is weak, every US dollar spent in Florida costs significantly more. A 25% exchange rate effectively increases the price of everything by a quarter, turning a simple grocery run or a tank of gas into a major budgetary concern, eroding their purchasing power. Then there's the hassle factor. Cross-border travel has become more complex. Navigating US health insurance coverage remains a labyrinthine and expensive challenge for non-residents. Concerns about the American healthcare system's costs deter many from staying for extended periods. The sheer logistics of maintaining two homes thousands of miles apart becomes less appealing as one ages and seeks a simpler, less stressful lifestyle. Finally, climate change is casting a long shadow over the Florida dream. While winters up north are getting colder and snowier in some bursts, Florida is facing its own climate realities. The increasing frequency and intensity of hurricanes, the rising sea levels, and even the warmer, more humid off-season weather are making the state a less predictable and potentially risky place to invest time and money into. Now, let's talk about 2025. This season has been the most telling yet, and the data is alarming. A recent report from the Florida Chamber of Commerce indicates a further 15% drop in long-term Canadian visitor arrivals compared to the already low 2024 numbers. This isn't a rebound, it's a continued decline. The trend is solidifying, and the industry is taking notice in a big way. The most immediate and visible impact is on the real estate market. In snowbird hotspots like Naples, Sarasota, and Clearwater, there's a noticeable surge in condo and rental property listings. The market is shifting from a seller's market to a buyer's, or more accurately, a renter's market. Landlords are being forced to drop prices and offer unprecedented incentives like free months or waived fees to attract tenants. Local businesses are sounding the alarm. Restaurants that once had waitlists in season are now half empty. Golf courses have open tee times. Retailers are reporting softer sales, specifically noting the absence of their northern regulars. This has sparked a new movement among local tourism boards, a pivot to attract shorter-term vacationers from within the US to fill the gap left by the long-term snowbirds. So, if they're not going to Florida, where are they going? The 2025 data shows a clear rise in domestic tourism within Canada itself. Provinces like British Columbia and Nova Scotia are marketing their mild, maritime winters successfully. Furthermore, there's a massive surge in popularity for sun destinations where the Canadian dollar goes further, namely Mexico and parts of the Caribbean like Cuba and the Dominican Republic. These destinations offer all-inclusive resorts that provide cost certainty, a major advantage over the unpredictable expenses of a Florida stay. They also offer easier travel from major Canadian airports and a different cultural experience. This competitive shift is perhaps the greatest long-term threat to Florida's dominance in the winter sun market. All of these reasons are powerful, but the number one factor, the one that is truly shocking in its scale and permanence, is demographic disruption. The traditional snowbird generation is aging out. The baby boomers who fueled this migration for 40 years are now in their late 70s and 80s. Many are no longer able to travel, or they are passing away. They are not being replaced. The next generation, Generation X and older millennials, are simply not following in their footsteps. This cohort is facing a completely different economic reality. They are poorer, carrying more debt, and are far less likely to have generous pensions. The idea of owning a second home in another country is a fantasy for most. Their priorities are different, valuing experiences over seasonal relocation. This generational wealth gap is the true earthquake. The foundational economics that made the snowbird phenomenon possible, stable careers, defined benefit pensions, and affordable property, have largely vanished for the people who are now at the age where their parents would have bought that Florida condo. The pipeline of new snowbirds has been cut off at the source. Furthermore, this generation values flexibility. The idea of being locked into a single location for 6 months is unappealing. They prefer shorter, more varied trips to different destinations around the world. The world has gotten smaller, and Florida now has more competition than ever before. The very model of snowbirding is becoming culturally and financially obsolete. So, what does the future hold? Florida is not going to become a ghost town. It will always be a major tourist destination. But the era of the mass migration snowbird is likely over. The future will involve a shift from long-term stays to shorter, more frequent vacations from a more diverse set of visitors. The market is undergoing a painful but necessary correction. Communities are already adapting. We're seeing a push to attract remote workers, or digital snowbirds, who can work from anywhere for a few weeks at a time. There's also a focus on attracting retirees from other U.S. states with colder climates, though they too are facing similar financial pressures. The adaptation has begun, but it will be a challenging transition. The empty beaches of Florida are more than just a quiet season, they are a symbol of a changing world. They represent shifting economics, new generational values, and the globalized nature of modern travel. The loss of the Canadian snowbird season is the end of a beloved chapter, but it's also the start of a new one for the Sunshine State. What do you think? Are you a snowbird who decided not to return? A local Floridian feeling the impact? Or someone from a new generation with a different travel style? Let me know your thoughts and experiences in the comments below. If you found this deep dive informative, please hit that like button and subscribe for more content exploring the fascinating changes in our world. Thanks for watching.